The way you were kind of like in this weird liminal space because we did the tour and we've seen a lot of the halacha, but we haven't actually seen the Shulchan Aruch. And someone could attack me and say that I maybe I'm too focused on the Shulchan Aruch as a when I do Chazara. But so I thought actually we'd
The
start out
Bach
maybe
would say that.
the Bach would definitely not. I mean, there are plenty of Marshall would probably say that. There's a lot of anti-codification people out there, but not clear what the Gra would say. But I thought we'd start just to review the Ran versus Rashi on the whole theory of like Devar Sheish Matirin. So we can do it outside. Maybe I'll throw it open to you guys. Maybe one of you guys will take Rashi and one will take the Ran. Anybody want to jump in? Just to maybe set the ground. Sure. Anybody who's listening in, right? Devar Sheish Matirin, something that can become whatever. We'll get into that specificity. Can become mutar, is not batel afilu ba'alef, right? Even in 1,000. And so the question is why. So go ahead. Noam, take one of them.
Right. So Rashi says, it's going to become permitted at some point. Why even rely on Bitul? And there seems to be and Rav Nachum didn't like this, but there seems to be a preference for not having to rely on Bitul at all when you don't need to.
Yeah, if I remember correctly, he tried to reframe it a little bit because he brought up Choser V'Neir as it's right. Just even something that is mutar to eat could still have some trace on it almost of
right.
Isur. His way was more the way I was thinking, but I was more convinced of the other way when we were talking about it in class. So I'm in both places on that. But and that's just remind people that's Rashi and Beitza. It's Bet Amud and it was Gimel Amud Bet, if I remember correctly. So yeah. So all right, Yavne, you're stuck with the Ran.
Okay, so the Ran is a little more convoluted, but the idea, and you want me to do this outside? Okay. So the idea is that it goes back to the debate between Rabbi Yehuda and Chachamim about whether should I, yeah.
You should go there, yeah, for sure.
With the idea that the question of whether min b'mino, Rabbi Yehuda holds that min b'mino is never batel, and the Chachamim hold that that is batel berov, and what the Ran claims is that the Chachamim actually hold that in principle min b'mino really is never batel, but because the case that we care about is when it's Isur veheter, then it's not really min b'mino because one of them is Isur and one of them is heter, and therefore they're not the same type of thing. But in the case of Devar Sheyesh Lo Matirin, then it really is in some sense the same thing when it is min b'mino, and therefore, because they're both in some sense heter, and therefore even Chachamim hold like the Ran that it is not batel ever.
I'm going to sharpen that a little bit because go ahead. No, go ahead. You can finish if you want.
And then I guess the reason why min b'mino is never batel is because the idea of batel is that the taste will compete with, will like weaken the taste if it's
other way.
For something to be batel, we want the taste of the other thing to weaken the taste of the small amount, or to weaken the taste of the thing that we want to be mevatel. And with min b'mino, if it's the same type of thing, then in fact the flavors don't subtract, they add. It doesn't weaken it, it strengthens it, if anything.
Great. So I'm gonna just sharpen a little bit. I'm gonna sharpen what you said. Either they're both darshaning in the same pasuk, as a dama par, dama seir, but and the fact that they're each still called dam. But I'm gonna sharpen it because remember, at the end of the day, this is a derabanan law. It's not a deraita. And so I think that the way the Ran, if I remember correctly, the way he says it is, it's not that, right? He says, number one, normally if you have an Isur and you have a heter mixed together, even if they're what we think would be the same mean, they're a different mean. This is, Isur chicken with heter chicken, and therefore they're not the same mean. This, by the way, we'll see this Rav Landis went a little bit different with this, but we'll see. I think it's the Taz next week who will claim, yeah, this is clearly Bater Shema, right? Obviously, right? This is not a Bater Tama mean bimino. Remember, if you remember correctly in Avodah Zarah, there's a debate. Do we follow, what does it mean to be the same mean? Is it according to the name or is it according to the taste? And it's not that is the same mean, right? Because this is actually, it's a safek mutar, safek heter, or not maybe not safek. It's like something that is like between mutar and heter. Right now it's asur, isur and heter. You know, right now this is this egg. Let's say an egg is born on Shabbat. It's asur at the moment, but it's gonna be mutar. So it's somewhere between the same mean and not the same mean, and therefore the rabbis made a gezerah on it, saying that's not batel. I think is the way the Ran has to play out. I think he kind of says that actually. And that's an important thing, right? To remember that all of these categories that we've had, Roi Likabed, Birya, and now Yesh Matirin are Gezerot Derabanan and not Deoraita claims about Bitul. Now, granted, the claim about Min B'Mino, Eino Batel, might be, it seems like it's Deoraita, right? It's from Rabbi Yehuda. And according to the Ran, the Chachamim agree, right? They actually agree Min B'Mino is not Batel, as you said, because what we need is a weakening of the flavor of the Isur, or weakening, maybe not, I don't necessarily want to say flavor, a weakening of the Isur, let's call it that for the moment. And Min B'Mino isn't weakening it. So, okay, anyone want to add anything? Tikva, I know you jumped in a minute late there, so you may have some, you don't have to, but if you had something to add to that.
I just have a question now thinking about it, but I was understanding it more like how Yavni was explaining it. But then according to the Rabbanan, they agree with Rabbi Yehuda that Min B'Mino should never be batal. They're just saying, right, this like case that looks to us like Min B'Mino is actually not, because one's Isur and one's Heter. But but then why don't they still make a distinction though between Min B'Mino and Min B'She'eno Mino, that Min B'Mino is batal L'Rov and Min B'She'eno Mino is batal B'Chish?
Yeah, it's a great question. No, it's a great question. I haven't had a chance to look into it, but I think it's a great question, because then it's like, you know, why if the Chachamim think that Min B'She'eno Mino is actually Batel 1 in 60, not Barov, then why, you know, then what's going on? You know, then there shouldn't be any Batel Barov. I haven't had a chance to look into this if anyone says anything about it. If anyone knows anything or has an answer or has thought that about the Ran, it's a great question. So, Sarich Yun, I'll leave it at that. Maybe I don't know if I'll have a chance, but maybe somebody else watch this. Maybe Rav Nachum will watch this and give us an answer, or we can ask him next time. So
there was a Be'er Tev that I understood well enough to see that. I think that he was discussing that, but I didn't understand it well enough to know what he is.
Oh, did he say that in Shir? It's
No, what? No, I was just saying I saw Be'er Tev that I didn't have time to look into enough to understand it, but I think he was at least asking that question.
I'll go back over that and see if I don't. It's one of the Achronim. I think it's the Shach brings up the Ran. I have to see it. I don't remember what he says about it, so he may bring that up too.
But the Taz brings up.
It was the Taz. It was the Taz. Yeah. So if the Taz brings it up, if the Be'er Tev brings it up, he's usually quoting one of the two of them. So it's most of the time, or summarizing. But okay, good. So that's the main distinction between the two shitot. The number of cases where which shita you have actually matters. I think on one hand it isn't, you know, they're pretty narrow. I sent you guys a Pri Megadim where he brings up a case. On the other hand, I think they both give some fundamentally important ideas of Isser v'Heter, right? Rashi is giving a pretty fundamental idea of, you know, that somehow, even though Bitul works, it's not ideal. And I don't just mean it's not ideal like it's b'diavad. I mean, he means it's really not ideal. And if you could avoid it, then, you know, avoid it. And, you know, and the Ran has this really, you know, interesting shita that everyone agrees, not only that everyone agrees that maybe we know is not batel, but that like what Bitul is really about is a weakening of the substance, which made sense to us maybe, but I think he makes that very fundamental of this weakening idea of being like machlish versus, I don't remember, was he machzik or ma'amid or something like that? I don't remember what his language was. So, all right, good. So a couple things. I want to open the tour now, and I thought we could actually, the tour is pretty short, and I thought we could just kind of read through the tour. This is my, you know, I don't have to prepare so much. We could read through the tour and just remember some points based off that. it's and we'll see when you guys may have already looked at the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch, not surprisingly, is much longer. The Shulchan Aruch has a lot of additional points on this topic than the Torah has. Okay, someone want to jump off and start reading the Torah? Kol davar sheyesh lo matirin.
I can read.
Go for it.
Kol davar sheyesh lo matirin kegon beitza shenoda biyom tov sheruya lemachar im nitarva b'acherot ben shlema ben trufa ena betela afilo be'ela. So anything that will eventually become permitted, for example, a egg that was what's the technical term for no?
No, laid. You lay an egg, right? Is that
Laid?
right?
You lay an egg?
Yeah, you lay an egg. Yeah.
Okay. This is an English word, not a Hebrew word.
Exactly.
Laid.
Yeah.
Right. Laid on Yom Tov, and it's going to be fit for tomorrow when Yom Tov is over. If it's mixed with other permitted eggs, whether the beitzah is whole or whether it's ground up, mixed up, it's not permitted. It's not nullified even in 1,000. So it's not nullified.
Great.
And even if there's a doubt, thank you, Yavne. And even if it's a doubt as to whether it was laid on Yom Tov or not, it was mixed up with other eggs, it's still forbidden.
Mm-hmm. I just want to stop you there just to note two things, right? Safek, if it's whether that's it's asur at the moment or not. We know for sure it's going to be mutar. It's not a question of that. It's a question of is it asur right now? That is still not batel. And the other big thing is that unlike the two previous categories we saw where shlemut matters, it does not matter in davar sheyesh lo matirin. But which makes sense, I think, right? And maybe someone can, right? The other two categories were about importance, I think chashivut of some sort or something like that. I would say both birya and davar arulik abed. And and being chashivut gets lost if it's cut up, ground up, something like that, right? Reduced in size potentially. Versus this is not a category of chashivut; it's a different category, as we've seen from both the Ran and Rashi. So I don't know if that was helpful, but
it was.
Anyway, yeah, go ahead, Noam. Keep going.
Sure thing. Okay. Vafilu afsa mimena tafshil katab abi azri shehu asor. And even if someone made from it a dish, the Abi Azri, the Ravya, says that it's still forbidden. Aval lefi ma shepiresh Rabbeinu Tam daha de davar sheyesh lo matirin ena batel davka kashinitarev bimino. Aval nitarev b'she'eno mino ta'amo batel b'shishim. Im ken hatafshil mutar im yesh bo shishim kevan shelo kevan.
I think it's kivan shelo kiven.
To kiven levatla, right?
Yeah.
Right. But according to that which Rabbeinu Tam explained, that the rule that something that will be permitted is only batel, it will not be batel. That is only when it's mixed up bimino. But it's mixed up sheno mino, then its Tam is going to be nullified in shishim. So therefore, with regard to a tafshil, which we're assuming is an ano mino case, it's permitted in shishim because he did not intend to nullify it.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So I make, I don't know, some sort of dish with vegetables and I put some egg in there, it might be different if the egg strengthens it, right? That might be, I don't know. I don't want to make a judgment on that, but like, as we see in the Beit Yosef here, right? Mayim and melach in dough, right? Salt and water are considered mino. They're both because they're all part of the dough essentially. And therefore that wouldn't be batel if you had somehow, mayim that would be mutar tomorrow, but isn't mutar today. Someone like, drew it on Shabbos, that would be, I guess, that mayim is asur. If you remember back to Shabbat rules, today it could be will be mutar tomorrow. It's still Shabbos, let's pretend. Then it's hard to say. Then they made that all into dough. It's a hard case. So maybe I won't go there. Then the mayim, because it's in this I don't know. There were different ways we put this. It's an essential part of the dough. Whatever it is, it's considered bimino, and therefore it is not batel.
Right.
But generally, we do follow the Rabbeinu Tam here, and not the Ravya, in terms of the bimino is the only case where Devar Shesh Matirin applies. So.
Right, but even in the dough case, that's considered a mino case.
It's considered mino case. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder if that's because that's like leaning heavily on the do we go by Tom or do we go by Shem? And it's like very much in the Tom category. So even though they're technically not the same Tom, functionally they are.
Yeah, I was thinking about it. I don't know. This is going to be a little more harif, my version of it. No pun intended on all this topic. But is it sometimes we see in halacha where you live in a world where a certain shita has been accepted, but you kind of want to lean towards the other shita. And this feels a little bit like that to me, where it's like we've accepted Rabbeinu Tam that min b'mino is the only case where Devar Shesh Matirin is not batel. But we kind of, have a feeling that we actually want to have min b'sheino mino cases where it also doesn't apply. And so this is like a way of reframing that. So that was the way I looked. I didn't bring it up in class, and so I need to ask Rav Lennis and Rav Nachum if they think that's right. But that's kind of what I felt about this Beit Yosef here, which I think he's quoting the Rabbeinu Yerucham, if I remember correctly, or at least Rabbeinu Yerucham agrees with him. So. Anyway, I could give other cases where I've seen that. You see that a little bit with like Shvidat Kalim on Shabbat, where we generally rule like Beit Hillel that Shvidat Kalim is, it's not an issue. Like your kli can do stuff on Shabbat as long as you're not doing anything with it. If you like leave it before Shabbat, if people have ever studied the end of the first parak of Shabbat and the second parak, I think. No, it's the end of the second parak and the third parak. But nonetheless, as you like look at the Rishonim and Acharonim, they start like they keep Beit Hillel, but they're like, yeah, but they make asur all these things that Beit Shammai thought you shouldn't be able to do, leave your kli to do, kind of thing. So.
Well, going back to your original comment, that's why codification is sometimes problematic, because you have to codify a shita in some real way. But if you view halakha as more of a narrative process, then you're much more easily able to like go from shita to shita, or like pick and choose elements from the two.
Yeah, that's fair. It also could be just right. You're describing a world, right? Certain halachot, certain shitot take hold of certain places, and then Minhag Yisrael Torahi at some point, right? So you kind of can't fight it so much. But good. It's okay. So those are the main points on Aleph. I just take a look at Bet. This is the Rashba here that the Torah is going to quote, according to the Beit Yosef, poorly. Although I actually think I need to look at it again. I think in the Shulchan Aruch he also does a bad job of quoting him. So not that I would ever say that, but either Tikva or Yavni, you want to read the second part of the tour?
Just so you know, Joel, Chaim Soloveitchik calls the Shulchan Aruch the language of the Shulchan Aruch a hatchet job. So you're in good company.
Yeah, he can say that. I don't know if I can say that, but there are parts that the Shulchan Aruch writes better than in other parts where he doesn't write so well. So the Rambam, you want good writing, read the Rambam. I don't know if you should rule that way, but you should read the Rambam. He's the best writer out there, as far as I'm concerned. So also the Chaya Adam. Chaya Adam's a great writer. Just to throw some of my favorites out there. Yavni, go. I think you volunteered, right? Is that the?
Oh, I was actually suggesting Tikva should, because
Tikva, you want to read? Yeah, please.
Sure, but I just had a question. So the case with the water and salt and the bread, were you saying that that's just in this situation? That's not a general principle, that we don't generally consider that min b'mino?
It's a great question. You're killing it with stuff I have no answer to today. Is that I was understanding it that way. And you're right, that would be a knockdown of my idea that this is, just it's a way to kind of follow the Avi Ezri, is that this is not just a case for in the case of Davar Sheyesh Matirin, but it's actually a case of any case of water and salt for making dough would be a case of min b'mino, and that might have major halachic implications. So that's a great question, and I will leave that hanging for the moment because I don't have an answer. So,
yeah, it's
unless
hard
anybody else.
to tell when random things or cases come up in context, whether it's just for that context or they're just hanging it on that case. Like, oh,
Yeah.
also this.
But
Yeah.
no, it's a great question. Like halachically, we'd have to see, does somebody else quote this as a min b'mino case? Like, this, and then you see this all the time where somebody will, right, and will say, hey, there's that Siman over there that has nothing to do with this topic, but they brought up this idea, and can that? And sometimes it's merely that as someone I heard one of my teachers once put it, it's a filing problem, right? The Shulchan Aruch just he filed it in a different place, and but yeah, so that's one of a second question we have now. First about the Ran and why why the Chachamim, according to him, would ever would say rov. They would always say 1 in 60 because if it's Isur with heter. And the second one here of is mayim and melach in Isa, is that only for Davar Sheyesh Matirin that it's min b'mino, or is it in all cases? So I will leave both those open for the moment. And then do you want to read the Torah?
Yeah, sure. כתב הרשב"א שאינו ניכוי דבר שיש לו מטירן על דבר שההיתר יבע ודי ממילא, כמו ביצה, אבל דבר שאינו בידו להיתר, אינו בוודאי שיבע לו, הלכה ספק ביצה טרפה, אף על פי שאם תטעון התרנגולת או תחיה י"ב חודש מותרות, כולם כיוון שספק הוא, לא הווה דבר שיש לו מטירן. So the Rashba writes that you only consider something a Davar Sheyesh Lo Matirin if it will necessarily become, for sure it's going to become heter, but something that is a question, like a Safek Beitza Trefa, that it might be that the chicken survives or it's a mistake, then you don't consider it that. And so then in that case, it would be Batal B'Shishim.
Yes. So I want to just sharpen that a little bit, if that's okay, right? He says, and this is where he gets into trouble the way he quotes the Rashba. He says it needs two things. It needs to, that's right, it's going to become mutar, for sure, like it's a vadai, and mimela of its own, right? On its as the Rav Lance quotes the Rav, willy-nilly, right, as he says. But that it's and what mimela means here is going to be part of the question of, well, what does it mean that it's going to be on its own? Is like, you could do something, but you're going to do that anyway. Like the case we have is like if Tevel falls into hulin, or that, and then that you're going to go take maser from another pile you have of grain, right? That can be used to take, as maser for the stuff that fell in as well. That will become mutar. You're going to take it anyway, right? You have another pile of grain. You're going to for sure take maser from it. So you're doing something. It's not really mimela in the same way we would think about mimela, but nonetheless, it's like you're going to do it, right? And so, and this plays out more than anything of really a case of how much do you have to lose, right? Is it, is there hefsed or not in your doing this? That's the language the Beit Yosef used. Actually, he's quoting the Rashba there. It says below, im hamatir be'ado lasoto below hefsed, right? If you can do it without loss. And then we're going to, a lot of this is going to now revolve around, well, what counts as loss? And we had a big debate about this, not a big debate, we had a discussion based on the next part of the Beit Yosef here of the Rashba. He quotes the Rashba saying, what if I have a kli, if somebody cooked bacon in my kli, right? I'll use something that actually I would have hagala. Let's say they cooked treif soup in my kli. And it gets mixed up among I know I need to kasher it. I put it out there and I got mixed up amongst my other kalim that look identical, right? Is it batel barov, or is it going to be never batel because that's davar sheyesh lo matirin? If I do hagalah on it, it's fine. And his rule, of course, there is hagalah is it's hefsed. There's a major process for whatever that means. I'm actually putting words that I probably shouldn't put there, but we had a debate of like, well, what is the hefsed of Haggalah? Is it because this is many dishes? Is it because it, you know, you have to draw the water and heat it up? Is it you have to use wood to light the fire and so forth? Or is it just, it's a process that takes time that, you know, on you, whatever that may be. We will see, by
So
the way.
Rablandy seemed to not agree with the ruling. Right?
Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Right.
I don't know. I was trying to decide if he disagreed with the ruling or disagreed with me, who I don't know if you guys like. I said it fast and then I got jumped all over. So I made a claim that maybe today Haggalah is easy. You know, like I don't know, like you know, I've done Haggalat Kelim. It's not so hard in general. We have water in a tap. We have a stove. You know, and hey, you know, if you live in Yerushalayim around Pesach time, you know, you just go to your street corner and someone will do it for you. It's like that easy. And I think I wasn't sure if he was attacking the law or he was attacking me for saying that. So, and I haven't had a chance to clarify with him about that yet. So it's, yeah, it's a good question. I will say, right, somebody else is gonna, we didn't get into this, but there is a whole principle here that it's also like some of the other categories we've seen, that Devar She'esh Matirin is only a thing of where it's Machmat Atzmo, right? It has to itself, you know, be, and not like, for instance, you know, blood. We're going to get the case of blood in meat, which will just become mutar if you roast it, right? Potentially. Then and they say no, it has to be, you know, itself. And they say, well, so what do we care here about, you know, that there's hefsed, bliat, you know, the blia of a kli, that's not, it's not on its, you know, it's not machmat atzmo that it's asur. And so therefore it never even should be in the category of Devar She'esh Matirin, what's going on here. But we'll do that next week. Anyway, I bring that up. And this is always the thing about kalim that kind of is that they fall in this weird place in comparison to food. So yeah, those are the main things I wanted to do, unless anybody had any other stuff. And I'm running myself out of time quickly. So yeah, I was trying to think, by the way, about, aside from the kalim case of like, when does this, when else, like, is this like commonly relevant in our world? Like birya, like obviously we talked a lot about like real practical applications of birya, and Devar Re'ulit Kabed could also be very practical, I can imagine. Devar She'esh Matirin, I mean, it does, right? You could have you know, you'd have to have like an egg born on Yom Tov that fell into, you know, something else. I don't know. That's it probably does. I imagine it does happen in places like Eretz Yisrael, where there are real cases of, you know, taking truma and maser, and their actual concerns and stuff gets mixed up or something like that. So, but anyway, that's all I have, unless people have something else. And I have two questions to look for now. Thank you, Tikva. So.
I had another question, something that came up with the other one.
Yeah, please.
Is an egg is not birya, right? Like, did they think of an egg as alive?
An egg is well, birya doesn't have to be alive, right? Like Gidan Hashem is a birya. An egg can be a birya. Like an egg with we saw a difference between an egg with an afroach. So maybe it's the afroach is the birya, really, versus an egg with dam, which is not a birya. So right. Yeah.
So why is the egg with dam not one?
But is it the egg? So the egg with, if it has like an actual, you know, fetal chicken in it, then it's a birya. If it doesn't, if it only has just a blood spot, it's not considered a birya. The blood. So I guess it's the thing in the egg could be a birya, not the thing
in the egg. Okay.
Yeah. So.
Okay. But like an egg, is there an egg from a non-kosher? Now I'm just.
Yeah. There are eggs from non-kosher.
That would be birya. That egg.
Yes, I believe. Shoot, now I'm forgetting. I think that's correct, actually. Yes, I believe that. I will double check, but I believe that's correct. That, right, an egg, because it's its own. Yeah, I would imagine that's the case.
A penguin egg.
What was that?
A penguin egg.
A penguin egg, exactly. So penguins are mammals. Yeah, that would refer. It's not even a bird category. Oh no, they're birds. Never mind. I didn't say that out loud, did I? Shoot, I gotta stop the recording. They're birds. Yes. I'm thinking of what?
Platypus.
Is that? Yeah. Platypus are the only mammals that lay eggs, as far as I know. But penguins are not kosher birds, obviously, and penguin egg would be. There are plenty of egg, you know, an eagle egg, something like that, a hawk egg.
Ostrich.
Yeah. we'll just name all the non-kosher birds now.
Great.
So next week also we're going to do some cheese. So I'm hopefully going to get a chance to summarize some of the stuff Lexi teaches us for next week's. So I'll split 15 minutes on the rest of Dvar Shesh Matirin, 15 minutes on Kvinat Akum. So all right, everybody.
Thanks, Joel.
Have a wonderful day. Thank you.
Hagurim Sameach.
Oh yeah, Hagurim Sameach.
Yeah,
So, all right.